Welcome to Duck Season Somewhere podcast. This episode is brought to you by the following sponsors. For 365 days a year, it's duck season somewhere at Ramsey Russell's GetDucks.com. The world of duck hunting is way bigger than our backyard. The very best duck hunts in Argentina and Mexico are only the beginning. We specialize exclusively in 6 continents worth of proven waterfowl hunting adventures. Whether you're looking for a unicorn species or a fun trigger pulling vacation of epic proportion, we've got the right hunt dialed in. Real duck hunts and authentic experiences for serious duck hunters. As a genuine American duck hunter myself, I know the difference. Founded in 2003, GetDucks.com is not just what we do, it's all we do. I've been there personally many times. Our reputation speaks for itself. Anita and I are personally available to assist before, during, and after your trip because you deserve nothing less. Looking for something closer to home? The next great hunt is closer than you think. Contact proven operators throughout the U.S. and Canada at our U.S. hunt list. Explore worldwide duck hunting at GetDucks.com. All package details, photos, videos, stories, and thousands of client testimonials right there at your fingertips. GetDucks.com. Ball Shot Shell's copper-plated bismuth tin alloy is the good old days again. Steel shots come a long way in the past 30 years, but will never, ever be like good old-fashioned lead. No way. Say goodbye to all the gimmicky, high recoil compensation science and marketing hype, and hello to superior performance. Know your pattern, take ethical shots, make clean kills. That is the boss way. The good old days are now. It really is duck season somewhere for 365 days per year. Duck season somewhere takes me year-round to worldwide destinations where I visit with the most interesting people. I'm your host, Ramsey Russell. Join me here to listen to those conversations. Ramsey Russell, Get Ducks, and I am on morning 2 of Dallas Safari Club. The show opens up in about an hour and a half. I'm sitting in the booth across the table with my buddy Lee Kjos. How are you this morning, Lee?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You know, we were going to meet this morning for breakfast, and that's a massive room. What is it, 200 yards across? It'd be a good shot on a deer with a high-pod rifle across that dinner room. And you called. I'm like, where are you? I'm squinting, trying to look, and right across from me was an African guy, and he goes, mate, there he is. I see him. He's got the checkered shirt on. I mean, boy, he saw it. I said, I don't know how he saw that. I'm sitting there looking, and he spotted you right off the bat.
Well, you know how those guides are down there.
Oh, unbelievable.
Trackers and how skilled they are. But, yeah, I'm surprised. How would he even know?
I'm telling you,
I
I don't know. He was 5 feet from me across the table. There were just 3 of us, and you weren't yelling on the phone where he could hear you, but he could hear me, see me looking, and he saw you hang up the phone. He said, well, that guy in the checker shirt just hung up the phone. I'm pretty sure that's him. And sure enough, I squinted a little bit more, and there you were, walking back to your table. I'm like, man, there's some real talent here in this show.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think about this event?
Oh, you know, I came my first time last year. I came down here, and doing what I've done, for a career as Kjos Outdoors and my photography. I've been to lots of trade shows, and mostly like shows like the SHOT Show or a few others. But this Dallas Safari Club show is it's unique because of, it's a different culture here. The demographic is certainly different, and a lot of interesting people. I love the art. The taxidermy. It seems more, I don't know, like SHOT is an intense place to be, like the business
industry. SHOT is industry,
it's intense, right? This is a chill, laid back, cool place, meet a lot of cool people. The nightlife is a blast here. It's fun.
Dallas is good. I read one time that this is our 10th year exhibiting here, but I read that Dallas Safari Club didn't want to be the largest hunting show in the country. They wanted to be the nicest, and I think they've achieved that. It's just to me, as an exhibitor setting up, the people are so helpful. Like they serve barbecue down here in the mornings. when you're setting up, there's a barbecue going, and get your barbecue sandwich while you're waiting to come inside, and then you move in, and everybody's so helpful. But while we've been here 10 years now, we it's crazy. We meet a lot of people from Texas, which is great. But we meet people. I met people yesterday from all over the United States that come here to shop hunts, or to shop art, or to shop sport and stuff, or just to come and have a good time. Like a lot of the folks we hang out with here now are here just to socialize. It's like a big event. They come from the outskirts of Dallas to stay downtown and just socialize and eat dinner and be with their friends and go to some of the banquets and stuff like that. I enjoy it. It's got a good vibe to it.
I was going to ask you, you're a duck hunter, and you have these crazy trips all over the world. And here at this show, it's mostly like big game, right?
It is
Africa and all kinds of
Africa, all the big game animals in North America, and I kept getting asked. Well, I'll tell you how we ended up here. A dear friend of mine from Mississippi. It took me forever to get to know, but I met him at a very, very small show in Mississippi, and he asked me. He just about the third time he came by my booth in Mississippi, he looked around, we had talked for an hour, he said, "Ramsey, you need to go to Dallas Safari Club." I said, "Really?" He says, "You're ready. You got what that show needs you." Well, we had a hard time getting in. I had to call a favor to get in through Mr. John LaMonaco. The rest is history. But when we showed up, we didn't know nothing, man. We just showed up with whatever mounts I had handy. I had some scoters and geese and nothing. And what I realized, because of what you just said, right here within 2-minute walk of where we're sitting, you can go buy a markhor hunt, you can go buy an elephant hunt, a leopard hunt, a little dick hunt, or just anything. And what I realized is these guys are, quote, trophy collectors, unquote, which I don't mean necessarily trophies, but trophy experiences. And that's when I kind of found my bear, and I realized what they wanted. And the following year or two, we brought a king eider hunt to the auction. And I got to my booth about 5 minutes late, because, we're back here in the back, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, the doors open, the public starts coming in, and it takes about an hour for them to get kind of saturated into the walking aisles and people to find you. So I got, you got 5 or 10 minutes to get to your stand, your booth, and walked in, and there was a crowd waiting on us. I'm gonna say 20 people in front of my booth at 9:05, and that hunt had been auctioned at the Thursday night banquet or the Wednesday night banquet, and it was astounding. And one of the former presidents stepped up and grabbed my hand and said, "Son, I'd have bet nobody could blow up this event like you did last night. After 20 years, nobody." I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "You know what? I've seen everything come across, but when they started describing your hunt on the auction, Alaska king eider, you could hear ice rattling in the glasses because nobody in the room had one. Now you brought something that nobody had, and everybody wants it, and that the rest is history. 10 years, and now we're having to up the ante. Now we're having to bring bar-headed geese and red-crested poachers, and people come by the booth. Our repeat guys come by the booth just to see what new birds Ramsey brought to the show."
So do you think there's a big crossover between the big game hunters that travel all over, and a guy that would want to go on a duck hunt?
Yeah, I think most of our avid type followers are true. Their first passion is duck hunting. Okay, consider the guy that led me to Dallas Safari Club from Mississippi. He had killed 30-something Cape buffaloes, a bunch of leopards and lions, and 9 or 10 African elephants, but his passion was bird hunting. And what I see, a lot of these people walking up and down the aisle here have got massive, I'm talking tens of thousands maybe of square feet of trophy room that look like a museum. And I feel like, just from conversations, one day they look around and they realize, boy, some birds and the colors and the different positions would really make my game room sparkle. Or they've ran out of animals to hunt. And now they're looking for a new frontier, or they're too old to go climb a mountain and chase a markhor. It takes a man to go walk 19 miles in a day up in the mountains above tree line. And now, it doesn't take quite that much effort to go to a duck blind. Even at a remote place like Rio Salado, we can get anybody there.
Right.
And so, maybe a different phase of life. But anyway, we seem to, we do very, very well at the show in terms of just traffic and We're on our feet all day, but I love it. Man, I get in this show environment, Lee, and it's just question to question to question to question. I mean, it's like boom, 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 person, asking different questions. Mongolia, Australia, Argentina, New Zealand are nothing to do with anything we do, something different. And I'm thinking on my feet, and I'm jiving with hunters, and I'm just in my element.
You know, you brought up, we've only been talking here a short time, but you brought up two interesting hunts. You brought up Rio Salado, which is in remote Argentina.
Remote.
And then you brought up the King Eider hunt, which is in remote Alaska.
Yeah.
How different are those two hunts with, like, in regards to your customer, your client? What are they looking for? Because, you know, the accommodations it's not like this is a cushy, you know, like a cushy hunt to go on, but they are just outrageously good and fun hunts, though, to go on.
They're adventures.
Oh, they're adventures.
And I'll back up by telling this story. I was at this convention years ago, maybe my first or second year, and somebody came up, and just in pursuant to the conversation and the business cards and the way he was dressed, I just realized, man, this guy was maybe third generation oil money. And he wanted to go to Argentina, and we started talking about, quote, 5-star, unquote, accommodation. He goes, whoa, boy, you got me hung on the wrong peg. I said, sir, he goes, I'm a real duck hunter.
Right.
He said, there's not a lodge down there as nice as my accommodation.
That's kind of what I was getting at. So
he said, there's not a single place down there as nice as my. He said, but if you come to my duck camp, it's a 10x70 mobile home that my grandfather moved in, and if you want a place to sit eating your steak, you got to pull a lab off the couch. And I mean, that's my kind of duck camp, Lee. And he said, son, all I've heard about you and what I want a real duck hunt. I want to be with real duck hunters. And if I want all that shit, he said, I'll take my old lady to Italy. And I've used that line 1,000,000 times. Mm-hmm. People call up asking about accommodations and all this non-hunting related stuff. And I'm like, whoa, mister, you got me hung on the wrong peg. If you want all that, take your old lady to New York City. You want to shoot the F-bomb out of ducks, call me. Or adventure. That's what we do. We do ducks. We do. And you know what we realized is real duck hunting. Real duck hunters, they don't fit on a peg. They just want a duck hunt.
Right.
And it's funny you should say, or you should hear me talk about Rio Salado and St. Paul Island, and draw those two, because I would add Peru, Mongolia. I would add to that list in terms of my most memorable and favorite experiences are so far off the beaten path. I don't want to go. It takes an hour and a half to get from the airport through Buenos Aires, the fourth largest city in the world, to get out the city limit, and you're still in civilization. I don't want to go there to duck hunt. I want to go somewhere that I feel like nobody else has ever set foot. I want that wildness, don't we all?
Oh, I think I
think humanity craves it.
Oh, for me, it's what does it for me is wild things in wild places.
Yes.
If it has that, then I'm good.
Hunting king eiders, to me, there's nothing sexy about that hunt. That hunt is a brutal in the nature. You are sitting on a 40 square mile piece of volcanic rock in the middle of the Barents Sea in January. And if the wind's blowing too hard, you're not in a boat. You may not even be out on the points. But if you are, you've got a 40-mile-an-hour wind cutting through you. You're looking at 20-foot waves. And I have never felt so insignificant relative to the universe as at that moment.
I think that's how I felt my first trip. It was, remember that movie Walter Mitty?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
My wife, Matt White from Rock House, shot a photograph of me like high up on a rock one day, and it was ripping. I think it was ripping like 60 miles an hour, and that surf was crashing in, and then the surf would come up 100 feet in the air. And when he snapped a picture, and that's what my wife calls it. She goes, "That's your Walter Mitty moment." Is that what you do when you're out there doing this all the time? And well, not all the time. Most of the time it's normal or relatively soft, but not St. Paul. I mean, that is a beast out there.
There's hardly a single really long, like to Africa or Asia or New Zealand flight that I get on that I don't watch that movie.
You like that one too?
I like that movie.
Oh, so did I.
But everybody needs a Walter Mitty moment.
Oh, so
we
did
all
I.
crave it.
Yeah. Well, I loved it too from the photographer aspect.
Oh yeah,
Remember,
I bet you
like
did.
that
Yeah,
missing slide.
Yeah,
that one missing. I mean, the ending is brilliant, right?
it's very good.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It's very good. But wow, what? And he was just man. He found himself just getting out there, and I think we all want it.
Wild things in wild places.
Wild things in wild places, and you know, and but don't get me wrong. Here at this show, our lineup of hunts, it's almost like, for me, it all boils down to an experience, to a lot of at a product line, let's call it. You know, it's almost like we've got trigger pulling vacations, and you know, going all in, like going all the way to Mongolia, and you're all in Mongolia, hopefully to find that bar-headed goose, that one shot at a bar-headed goose. They're both equally rewarding to me, but they're both very different experiences. And when I look back at my most favorite experiences to a hunt, except for one, Netherlands, which I love that hunt for some reason, but it's it's just very, very wild and remote places that you can't hardly get there from here. And I think a lot of people walking up and down these aisles, you know, Lee, I've got a lot of duck stuffed here, but I'm not a trophy collector. I'm an experience collector.
Right.
That's all. I don't need any of this other stuff. I just want to go experience it.
You know, again, like back to what I was kind of circle back to where I started this conversation of, I think there's like hunters differ in what they're after. So if you walk up and down these aisles, I mean, you can find a beautiful place to go to where you're well taken care of. It's like pretty much cut and dried how the day's going to go, and they'll shoot their game and they'll sit and relax and, you know, all that. And and I'm not saying that's not cool, but I am saying that when I did that Rio Salado hunt down in Argentina, and I had been to South America many times, and that, to me, was wild things in wild places. Yes. I didn't even know that anything like that existed.
I didn't either until Martha and I were talking about this in a podcast we recorded yesterday. She led me to that place. It was it was a heck of a test and adventure, plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G to get there during an exploratory trip with her and a couple of clients in tow. And the first time I came out, I never will, ever will I forget. I'd been to Argentina many, many, many times, and went to a place I didn't expect to go. Even on that trip, I walked a half mile through ankle-deep muck and shot a bunch of birds. But throughout the morning, in between the volleys, my bird boy would touch me and say, "Senor, aquí." And I was just shrugging him off because I had a bunch of dead birds, but I was still seeing birds fly everywhere. And I just realized, you know, that at the end of where those muddy boot prints stopped, where I was standing, that I had walked all over Argentina to find that place. And I knew it. I recognized it. I felt it. I said, oh my gosh, I found it. I found what I've been looking for. It was like Christopher Columbus just, boom, just put on Plymouth Rock or whatever. It's like, holy shit, here I am.
Tell people how big that marsh is, so they can try to get a scope.
It's at full water like it was last year and this year. It's 130 square miles, and just multiply that times 640 acres. I mean, just think about that. And what's so crazy, Lee, is we hunt a part of it,
tiny part,
because up on the upper reaches, which I've been to with David, you can't hardly get there. And even if you do, we had to leave 3.5 hours from that little camp house to get there one morning in a dry year when the roads were good. And there's absolutely, positively, short of pitching a tent, nowhere to stay. There's nowhere to stay. And it just, wow, it's just an amazing place.
When would have been the last years a marsh in North America looked like Rio Salado?
I don't know. I would like to know.
I'd have to say
1900.
I don't even think so. I think it'd be pre-1900. I think it'd be like 1880s.
Maybe it'd been in that era. Like
certainly around the turn of the century.
I became aware of a marsh in northern Indiana, of all places, which really doesn't have no ducks that I think of. I mean, like a bunch of ducks. Nobody just beats the wall down to go to Indiana to shoot puddle ducks anymore. but if you look up Kankakee Marsh, it was drained. 99% of that marsh was drained in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and biologists estimate that America, not the Mississippi Flyway, the entire continent lost 25% of migratory waterfowl with the draining of that marsh. And it would, in scale, I think it would have been about comparable in size. That's astounding.
I've seen marshes in like Saskatchewan around Moss Bank, Old Wives Lake, back in 70, I want to say it would have been 1978, maybe 80, 78-ish around there. I was 18. And you remember Jimmy Robinson, famed Jimmy Robinson?
Yes, sir.
Remember he'd do that, it wasn't his annual duck forecast, he'd do it in Sports Field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he wrote an article in there, and on that marsh, he said of all of his travels, it was the most waterfowl he'd seen in one place at one time. Well, I'm like, well, as a budding photographer back there, I'm like, I got to see that. So I went there, and it was staggering. Well, that was 100 square miles of marsh at that time. And I saw that dry up in the 90s in the drought.
Yeah.
That whole thing was gone.
Yeah. And then, once that part of the world dries up, farmers drop a disc and convert it.
Mm-hmm.
That short grass prairie is quick to fall to agriculture. Mm-hmm. We got to feed the world. I'm not disputing that.
It comes back. It can come back there, though. But there's other areas like what you're talking about. It doesn't come back. But
the entire country of Argentina is kind of like North Dakota and the Prairie Pothole region. Like, I've been in that Buenos Aires province a lot, and to drive 5 hours through Buenos Aires south of the city, it looks a lot like the Mississippi Delta, but it's pasture instead of. And there is a lot of soybeans and corn and whatnot, but it just looks flat like the Mississippi Delta. And what I have finally become aware of over the years is it's all marsh. It's all like cattail type marsh in wet years. And when as it dries up, farmers will turn their cattle loose. And as the cattle start eating some of that matera grass and stepping on it, and it becomes dry, it converts into more like a Bermuda pasture. And a few years ago, I was down there in an area that had always been like a big Bermuda pasture. It was very, very wet. And all of a sudden, out in the middle of that marsh where the water was just sheet water collecting, I could see all this cattail coming up. And I say something to my host, and he's like, oh, yeah. He said, next year, as the water stays on it, that'll be a marsh. That's crazy how nature is resilient and can cycle like that. Mm-hmm. But somebody asked me yesterday why I thought, for example, I talked to an outfitter in Mississippi yesterday. I'm hearing a lot from guys right now. A lot of outfitters call me saying, what's the duck hunting situation? And I asked him, I said, well, what's the duck hunting situation? Because, man, catfish has got some of the best dirt in the state of Mississippi, trust me. And he goes, we're killing some ducks every day. And I said, that describes the entire continental United States right now. No, once in a blue, I'm not saying tomorrow you ain't going to step out in your blind and have one of them banner days, but they're real far and few between right now. And I've covered a wide path throughout the central Mississippi Flyway this year. And it's just some ducks every day. And a lot of the conversation here in the booth has been, where are the ducks? Mm-hmm. Where are the ducks? Who's got the? I'm shrugging, and they're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know why. I think there's something going on continentally, population or habitat changes or hunting pressure, or probably just a big,
or all of it,
probably algorithm of it all,
or all of it. Yeah, I mean, you've seen it change a lot over the course of a few decades, haven't you?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of changes in South Mississippi. The South Delta of Mississippi. I've seen a lot of changes,
and we've seen it.
None
in
of
the
them
north.
good. None of the changes have been positive.
It's funny. That'd be a good topic to bring up, and maybe even a larger one for another episode. Is why don't people? I'm going to blame part of this on the Instagram culture, the social media culture, and that might not be accurate. And I want people to understand that this is my opinion, but it seems like lots of this has turned into a Me Too look at me kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like lots of things are done just
Vanity
for
and ego driven.
Like things are just done for the post. Nobody talks about habitat and conservation anymore. No one.
No.
I try to bring it up in a post once in a while, and the posts tank.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, I don't get that. When I was a kid, it was a big deal to go to one of the events. Like, let's pick a DU event. I mean, I remember people getting dressed up in a suit and tie to go to a banquet. I mean, it was a big deal.
Minnesota had a conservation organization that was a big deal to go to. They just shut down,
I know, they just shut down. Yeah. It's horrible.
Wow. So it was a big deal. Go and continue. I didn't mean to
Oh,
interrupt
no,
you.
it was a big deal. And, I mean, back then if you were a hunter, if you were a sportsman, hunt, fish, this seems particular in the duck hunting crowd, though, the people were into habitat and conservation. They were involved. They participated in programs. They were involved in wood duck boxes. I mean, it just seemed like it was a lot bigger conversation then than it is now. And I'm telling you, like, if there's one thing, well, you know, you and I are both big fans of Boss Shot Shells, and I'm part of that group. And man, if there's one thing that I could do in my life, it would be to reverse that narrative and get people back on habitat and conservation. It'd be the one thing if I could pick.
That's important to me, and we've had this conversation before, Lee. I think back to my dad, to my granddad. Their duck hunting stories were not once ever do I remember them talking numbers harvested. And they went through some dry times, some point systems, and you know,
Sure.
they went through some bad times. My dad one time told me 20 years ago, we come off the river with a bunch of mallards, and I showed him, and I said something to him about boy, I wish I'd like to have hunted back there in the good old days. And he's like, the good old days are now. You can go shoot 4 mallards. He said that wasn't always the case when I grew up. But those men, they didn't talk about numbers. They were out there having a good time. And if you look at the way they conducted themselves, the way their regard towards the resource, towards conservation, towards habitat, towards the future, the guys that put together organizations like Delta and the group in Minnesota and Ducks Unlimited, because they were worried about the future of duck hunting, they made America great the first time. And I've really developed an opinion that the future of hunting is not technology. You know, all this marketing today is to substitute skill set for technology. And I believe the future of hunting lies in its past. Men conducting themselves with an awareness. We shoot ducks for fun. It is fun. It's a great sport. They're great to eat. But at some point in time, we all need to give something back. And, you know, $100 worth of raffle tickets ain't real conservation. That's like throwing $5 in the offering plate and saying, I'm a Christian. That ain't how that works. We all need to take a more active role. And part of what we try to do, and I don't go out of my way to do it, but I guess it's just part of who I am. It's like I heard at these shows, people come up, we're talking, in the social media inboxes, I hear a lot of comments about conservation. It's like, man, I love what you're doing for conservation. And I don't know what I'm doing for conservation, but it's making people, showing these birds around the world is making people aware of conservation globally. And
you remember when it was this summer, you and I, we were at Rio Salado. It's the first time I'd seen it. And I told you, I said, this must have been what it was like back when you read all those classic stories of guys back in the green timber back in the day down south, or at the Susquehanna Flats shooting canvasbacks back in its heyday, or, you know, the Prairie Canada back what it was like in the mid-'50s during the soil bank era. And what makes Rio Salado so unbelievable is for people that haven't seen anything like that is the reason it's like that is because of the habitat. There's no other reason.
That's it. It's habitat.
It's what it is. If it's not there, it can't happen like that. But that is such a spectacular place in the world that those ducks have. I mean, that's if there was ever a home for a duck, it's there.
I agree, Lee. My favorite habitat, and I could not have said this until I stepped out of my backyard into the world. my favorite habitat. And I was talking to somebody yesterday here in the booth. I pointed to a drone picture of Rio Salado that was coming out on the screen here, and I said, that's duck habitat. That right there, you see that? That's duck wild, unspoiled, God-given, perfect, intact marsh is duck habitat. We shoot a lot of birds in rice and flooded soybeans and flooded agriculture, but I think that's because that's what ducks have to use. It's not. I don't think they would choose to use that given a viable choice between Rio Salado vibrant marsh habitat versus a third-generation soybean field with 6 inches of water on it. There's no way that produces for waterfowl what a vibrant marsh does.
Mm-hmm.
No.
No way. You know Brandon.
Yes, sir.
At Boss, I talk to him a lot about these things, habitat and conservation, and it's because, you just said, I don't know, what should we do? I mean, people have a voice, so you should definitely use your voice. We all have a vote. You should use your vote.
Yes, sir.
But we have to come up with ways, because I don't think everybody knows what to do. Well, how can I help? I'd love to help if I knew how. Is it just as simple as sending DU and Delta and the other cool organizations out there a few bucks? Yeah, that's certainly part of it. That's certainly part of it, right? But the mix has to be bigger than that because there's a lot of work and that has to be done, right?
That's right.
So I tell Brandon, and he knows how much I love this stuff, and we're like, I wonder if we could do a special project every once in a while, maybe make a cool runoff of some old school paper looking shelves with a custom 2-piece old school cardboard box. You know how they used to box them up way back in the day, and do that, and then have an artist paint the art for it, and then do maybe a signed and numbered thing and sell them off, and then all of the money, all of it goes to
a habitat project.
A project or something where people can see it, you can watch it, we could follow it. In the day of social media, you could watch all of that happen. I think that would be, I don't know, I just try to think of these ways of giving. You got to give back. You said it earlier.
One of the best ways I think we could all participate is I was out in Utah, and by the time this podcast airs, we will have heard this discussion with some of those Utah guys talking about conservation and what they've done, and they've actually passed
in the Salt Lake
out in that marsh. Some of those old clubs that are protecting their habitat, they've actually legislated the protection of those marshes in perpetuity. Civilization cannot come and encroach on that old habitat. They've legislated it to protect that remnant marsh, those parts of it, for the benefit of everybody, whether you duck hunt or not, but certainly themselves to go out and shoot ducks. And my question would be to anybody listening is, don't worry about the Great Salt Lakes, don't worry about Kankakee Marsh, don't worry about something like that, but look in your own backyard. Look right out your window in your own backyard and ask yourself, what needs to be done, what could be done, what needs to be protected. And if nobody's in charge of it, put yourself in charge of it. And there's no better way to grease a squeaky wheel than calling your congressman. Call him. That's why he's got a telephone number. Call him or write him and let your voice be known. But I think everybody that duck hunts has to shoulder that responsibility themselves. Just call somebody and squeak the wheel. And I think if enough of us do it collectively, if we all work together in our own backyards, then continentally, we make headway. That's the only thing we've got. Well, and social media will work to do that. You don't have to be a bazillionaire. All you have to do is have an Instagram account, and you too can start a movement in conservation.
You got to create a movement.
It's easy to do now.
You got to create a movement.
One man can do it. I'm thinking of what's that show? Independence Day, where that guy grabbed that flag and started running the other way into the British. Mel Gibson, leading the charge. Lead the charge right there in your backyard. Mm-hmm. It may just be a little WMA. It may be a property. It could be a public resource or a private resource. Lead the charge to protect that habitat in perpetuity. And we all work together, we'll make some headway. But I can tell you this, you hit the nail on the head. Not enough is being done right now.
Not now. Not when you have organizations like Minnesota Waterfowl Association that are folding.
That's terrible.
It's terrible.
That's terrible. Mm-hmm. And it's not. Would you say it's apathy or?
It's like, it's probably a bunch of things. I think the largest factor in hunter, I guess you'd have to consider that hunter recruitment, because numbers are falling, numbers are declining. I would think, to me, it would seem to be lack of access to quality ground for average, everyday, common walking the street people. I think that's
a big thing.
I think that's the number one thing. Now we have the private sector doing lots of things in regards to habitat. They buy big chunks of land, they turn them into, sanctuaries,
paradises,
right? They turn them into paradises for them, right? But that's just for a few. We need to get the rest involved.
We do.
Yeah, we do. We need families out there again.
We certainly do. I've always marveled, when you look at this show, kind of how we started Run Full Loop. You look at Dallas Safari Club. On the one hand, it's a hunting show. You want to come buy hunts, buy sporting art, you come here, but it's astounding at what this organization does. They exist to generate conservation dollars, global hunting, protect hunting, different global conservation initiatives in wildlife. They've got enough money they can get political, just like Safari Club International. They are kind of the NRA of the hunting world, not just ducks. That's my heartbeat, but for everything.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's astounding. But you had to start somewhere. You just got to start. It makes me proud to be a part of this group right here, just because they are advocating hunting and hunting quality and protecting the species and things of that nature, and I love it. What else, Lee?
Well, let's see. I'm going to go down next, I think the end of next week, and I'm going to try to hunt some greenheads down in Oklahoma with...
Oh, good.
Alex Brittingham?
I do.
Lou.
I do.
One-shot Lou. Go down and hunt with her and Gator. I'm looking forward to that. She's one of my favorite people in the whole world right now.
Oh, ton of personality.
Yeah, she's a peach. Yep.
And I love those little dogs. That's the second little dog like that she's had.
Gator, yeah.
First time I met her, she came into the show, and I'm like, "Where's he at?" "Oh, good to meet you. Where's your dog at?"
Exactly. Where's Gator?
She goes, "Well, he's out of the truck. I didn't want to bring him in." I said, "Oh, bring him in."
Yep.
And she went out there and got him and brought him in. And boy, those little dogs have so much personality, but she brings so much out of them. Doesn't she?
Oh man, she's a cool girl. Yeah. She, I don't know if everybody knows this about her, but she's quite the dog trainer herself. She's got those. Does that on her own and all that work, and
like a dog whisperer.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to that, and then me and the boys, I think we're going to go down and see the Hurt Locker guys in Kansas. We absolutely love that trip. I mean, they have their own special brand of cowboying down there, and they treat they treat it. I tell people it's like going to a rodeo and a goose hunt breaks out.
Yeah,
that's I mean, Christian and Baylor, they have their own style of hunting, and it's absolutely a blast to be down with those guys and watch them when they're on littles and they're hunting them. How they do it, man, they're good at it.
I love to shoot ducks, but that is really why one of my primary reasons to travel in the U.S. I like to get on those little geese. I like to get on the big geese. I like to goose hunt. We just don't have enough of that culture in Mississippi. But as for me, I'm wrapping up Sunday and heading back to Mississippi, home for a few days. Jake Latondra is coming down. We've got a special project we're working on right there in Mississippi. Get to show my home, the Mississippi Delta, the history, the culture, the duck hunting, the old, the new. And from there we're going to Mazatlan, Mexico, and good gosh, it's just nonstop.
Is Jake going on that too?
He is. Jake's going to come down to Mazatlan, and it's on the one hand it's a great duck hunt until noon, and then it's just a great vacation.
Yeah, there you go.
And we wanted to depict it, and I was explaining it to some of the staff and organizers, my team down there I work with, and they all but insisted, you got to come do this. They had seen some of these little short films we had done, and they said, well, if you did, Senor, if you came down here, how would you describe it? I said, come duck hunt on the fun side of the wall. That's how I describe coming to Mazatlan, Mexico, because it's fun. And from there we go to Azerbaijan. You know, we've got these red-crested poachers finally in the booth, and man, I guess I'm not surprised, but I am kind of surprised at just how much attention they garnered yesterday.
Where is Azerbaijan?
Azerbaijan.
Where is it?
It's on the west side of the Caspian Sea, kind of between just south of Georgia, just north of Iran, west of the Caspian Sea, east of Turkey, and it's just
it's safe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was really nervous the first time I went.
Well, I mean, you just mentioned the word Iran. I mean,
I know.
I mean,
but
have you been paying attention, or?
I've been paying attention, and I mean, it's like I'm watching the news a few weeks ago, and the whole 24-hour news cycle is talking about impeach Trump, and then I turn the news on a week later, it's like, whoop, Iran. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to Azerbaijan. But now here's the deal: here's what you got to understand about Azerbaijan. And I guarantee you, if you hadn't looked it up, everybody's looking like, where the hell is Azerbaijan? And I had to look it up, but they're an Islam country. I mean, they're Muslim, but they ain't, because Russia occupied them for their oil until I think till the George Bush administration. I mean, you know, forever. And they had a independence revolution or whatever, and got their independence from Russia, and I had to ask the host down there, because I've been to Pakistan, I've been to these conservative Muslim countries, and you don't see women, and if you do, you don't see nothing but a slit in the black veil with their eyes, and down here you see women dressed like my wife dresses, or a lot of money, a lot of food, a lot of this. We were sitting there the first time in Azerbaijan camp, and somebody mentioned something about, well, Ramsey, you know, I can't believe you're not having a toddy. I'm like, dude, you can't. And my host goes, you won't drink? I go, yeah. Where do you get it? He goes, the grocery store. They don't sell liquor in grocery stores in Pakistan, let me tell you. But I asked him, I said, what is the distinction? What's the deal going on here? He said, well, Russia occupied us. Russia didn't care how we practice religion. And essentially, my words, not his, my interpretation of what he said, we all became back row Methodist. So we're Muslim, but you know, we're moderate. We're liberal.
I'm like you. I've traveled my fair share in my life, and I've always found it when I'm with people that I would consider just the average people, regardless of religion or country I'm in, they're no different than we are.
No,
they're never any different. They want the same.
I would take it a step further. In a duck blind.
Well, we're
all
at.
duck hunters. I don't care what the guy's worth, how he practices, what color he is, what he does in his part. We're all duck hunters, and that's what I love so much about this thing I do.
I agree.
You know, and those guys are serious, very, very, very serious, fundamental duck hunters. They are the best duck hunters. They still market hunt over there. I mean, they're feeding their family with a lot of these birds we're shooting, you know, and that makes them a very, very good duck hunter.
Remember what I told you when we were down at Rio Salado? Those, you know, how some people, they call them like bird boys or guides or whatever. I'm like, no, these guys are duck hunters, these guys.
Well, do you remember the last morning?
Checho
and his brother and me and you went to the blind. And we were there way early. Remember, we had scouted that hole a few days before. We knew what was fixing to happen. Photographed in it. And we got there that morning, and we had 20, 30 minutes before it was light enough for us to see. We don't speak Spanish. They don't speak English. But they pulled out their iPhone, and right there in the dark, through the glow of that screen, they started showing us their other brothers and their uncle and their daddy and their granddaddy, and started showing us their personal duck hunts.
Their duck hunting pictures.
And that really, that was pretty special for them to show us what they did in their personal time, which was exactly what we were doing together that morning.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say, you know, regardless of what walk of life you come from, you know, when you're with them, and they're duck hunting brothers. That's what they are.
They're duck hunters.
They're no different than they love it just like we do. You know, the other thing, like culturally, you know, I try to do this, you know, whenever I'm traveling, talk to the local people and stuff like that, and like what makes them, what are they after, what makes them tick, you know, and they just want to raise a family, most of them, you know, just work a job, come home. They want their kids to be educated. It's the same stuff everywhere. But
everybody wants the same thing.
Man, it seems like the government's getting away.
That's a whole nother discussion.
It's a big one. Greed is a whole other. It's a whole other topic. Yeah. We'll save that one for later.
We'll save that for tonight over cocktail. We're going to start solving world problems. But hey, guys, at Ramsey Russell Get Ducks. Check it out on Instagram. And while you're at it, check out keep up with Lee and at Ball Shot Shells. And hey, at official DSC, Dallas Far Club, at official DSC. Check it out, man. And it's not but a 5 or 6 hour drive from Mississippi if you ever want to come by and see what a big old great wonderful hunting show is all about. Thank y'all for listening. Look forward to seeing you next time. Duck Season Somewhere is produced by Ben Page. Original soundtrack by our friend Cody Huggins.